Stars Chumley is getting by with no jail time after his arrest for drug and gun possession. And the district attorney is saying his punishment was still too harsh.
It all started as a wild rumor that no one saw coming. Austin Lee Chumley Russell from Pawn Stars was supposedly locked away for life. Those whispers moved through social media at lightning speed, shocking longtime fans who remembered his friendly smile and carefree jokes. But was any of it real, or just another viral hoax? Get ready, because once you peel back the rumors, you discover that Chumley's journey is far more complicated than most viewers ever imagined. His life has taken some stunning twists, from quirky reality TV fame to serious accusations that nearly derailed everything.
Half hour, we go to breaking news. The arrest report for Pawn Stars Chum Lee has just been released. It reveals investigators found multiple guns, meth, and Xanax pills inside his home.
If you think you know Chumley just because you've seen him appraise classic toys and antique curios, you might want to buckle up. By the time we reach the truth, you'll see there's a lot more to Chumley than meets the eye. The chaos began when outlandish rumors broke online, claiming that Chumley had been hit with a life sentence, allegedly for crimes so severe that nobody could believe it. Overnight, fan forums lit up with frantic posts, wondering how their favorite laid-back pawn shop employee could end up facing such a grim fate. Where did this talk even come from? Digging deeper, people found that the initial rumors were fueled by half-truths and confusion surrounding Chumley's legal troubles.
Trisha, Ricky, Chumley has been an employee here for about 10 years. The reality show, a hit for about 5. A lot of people here tonight. The business has no comment. They say they haven't even spoken.
While official documents never once mentioned anything resembling a life sentence, gossip sites stuck to the most scandalous angles they could spin. After all, a shocking story spreads faster than a simple truth. But that wasn't the whole story, and what actually happened to Chumley was far different, and, in some ways, more surprising. Long before he was a TV star, Austin Lee Russell was just another kid growing up in Henderson, Nevada. The story behind his famous nickname started early on, when a friend's dad joked that Austin's face resembled a walrus character from an old cartoon. The name Chumley stuck, and he's carried it ever since. As a child, he formed a tight bond with Corey Harrison, son of Rick Harrison and grandson of Richard Harrison.
Breaking news right now on Pawn Stars Chumley, whose real name is Austin Lee Russell. We've just learned the terms of a plea deal that'll keep him from serving prison time.
Two men who founded what would become the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop. When the shop eventually shot to fame as the backdrop for Pawn Stars, Chumley was right there by Corey's side. But life hadn't always been smooth for him. Shortly before the show's debut, he lost his father to pancreatic cancer, an experience that devastated him and underscored how precious time can be. Viewers who see only his upbeat humor might never guess the depths of sorrow he's endured or how it shaped his perspective on family, health, and living life to the fullest. When Pawn Stars premiered on the History Channel, no one expected it to become an overnight phenomenon. The show's premise was simple yet endlessly entertaining. Watchers followed Rick, the Harrison family, and their quirky employees as they negotiated deals, learned about odd collectibles, and joked around inside a 24-hour Las Vegas pawn shop.
Found out about a plea deal. He said he plans to plead guilty to a felony and a gross misdemeanor for having drugs and guns in his home.
Among this colorful cast, Chumley stood out immediately. He was often teased for forgetting details or making silly blunders. But beneath that comic relief persona, viewers also saw genuine warmth and a willingness to admit when he didn't know something. Over time, his knowledge about vintage pinball machines, sneakers, and pop culture memorabilia revealed hidden depths. For many fans, it was refreshing to see a relatable everyman who wasn't a polished expert on everything. He made mistakes, he owned up to them, and he kept a laid-back spirit that balanced the show's high-stakes drama. Pawn Stars soared in ratings, becoming the History Channel's biggest hit. Soon, Chumley turned his newfound fame into opportunities to brand himself beyond the show. He launched a company selling novelty items he designed and even sold half its stake to Rick so they could manage the booming merchandise requests together. What started as a playful gig turned into serious business.
Chumley yet, but fans tell me they are shocked. He's very goofy and very funny on the show.
And for a while, the future seemed bright. Then came the headlines nobody expected. Seemingly out of nowhere, accusations surfaced of serious misconduct involving Chumley. This triggered an intense police investigation, and law enforcement executed a search at his home. Inside, they reportedly discovered items that caused a stir: restricted substances, certain prescriptions, and multiple firearms, some of which were unregistered. That discovery was a turning point. Overnight, the lovable pawn shop jokester became the center of a legal storm. While an initial accusation related to possible wrongdoing never materialized into its own charge, the search itself led to charges tied to illegal possession of weapons and substances.
In the program, he is a normal person, maybe a little bit playful, right? But that doesn't mean that you will imagine him aggressive.
Chumley quickly found himself in court, facing nearly 20 counts related to these allegations. It didn't matter that he eventually worked out a plea agreement involving probation and counseling. Once the media latched onto the story, rumors spiraled in every direction, including the shocking lie that he'd been thrown behind bars for the rest of his life. For a public used to seeing Chumley goof off on camera, it was difficult to process such drastic news. Even after the dust settled and the truth came out, he received a probation sentence rather than jail time. Whispers about possible life sentences and overblown punishments just wouldn't die down. But those rumors had no solid proof behind them. Indeed, he ended up dodging the worst-case scenario through a carefully navigated legal strategy. Still, the damage was done. His image took a hit, and for a while, fans weren't sure if he'd return to Pawn Stars at all. Little did they know, Chumley was far from finished.
Weapons and misdemeanor drug charges. The judge ordered him to undergo counseling and stay out of trouble into 2019 to get the felony charge dismissed.
Remarkably, once the storm passed, Chumley refused to let his darkest hour define him. He returned to work at the gold and silver pawn shop, proving that he still had a place on the show that made him famous. Yet behind the scenes, he was hustling to build something of his own. That led him to open Chumley's Candy on the Boulevard, a nostalgic sweet shop right next door to the pawn shop. Stocked with candies that spark childhood memories, think classic Pez and vintage favorites, his store drew lines of fans eager to glimpse Chumley in person. He'd often pop in to sign autographs, share laughs, and post about new candy arrivals on social media. In an unexpected turn, this simple business venture became an even bigger success than skeptics predicted. Despite legal hiccups and tabloid gossip, Chumley had tapped into a market for throwback flavors and novelty treats. He'd parlayed the Pawn Stars spotlight into an enterprise that stood on its own. And in doing so, he took a vital step away from the shadow of his scandal. But that wasn't the only transformation he had in store. Even as his candy store thrived, Chumley struggled with something deeper: his own health. Over the years, fans noticed his weight often fluctuated. He talked about wanting to avoid the medical pitfalls his father had faced, and how his father's passing at just 54 years old was a wake-up call. First, he tried cutting down on junk food and embracing a balanced lifestyle: smoothies in the morning, veggies galore, and lots of gym time. He famously shed around 75 pounds during one especially focused stretch. But as many people know, losing weight can be the easy part compared to keeping it off. When those pounds began creeping back, Chumley decided it was time for a more drastic step. He ultimately chose gastric bypass surgery, seeking a permanent solution to help him maintain a healthy weight. The results were staggering. He reportedly lost around 160 pounds, dramatically altering his appearance and boosting his energy.
If he violates the deal, Chumley faces 2 to 5 years in prison. He was arrested in March after police raided his home and found 12 guns along with some marijuana and meth.
Suddenly, the fun-loving guy who'd once been teased for being out of shape was sampling new experiences, like riding certain hovercrafts, because he finally met the manufacturer's weight limit. It was a tangible reminder of how much his health had changed for the better. By sharing his journey, he inspired supporters and surprised skeptics. He didn't just look different, he carried himself with new confidence, unafraid to embrace activities that once felt off limits. For a man who'd already endured public scrutiny, showing this vulnerable step proved how serious he was about turning his life around. But that still wasn't the end of his story. As rumors about a life sentence continued to crop up online, Chumley focused on real-life projects. He, Rick Harrison, and the rest of the team took Pawn Stars on the road for the spin-off show Pawn Stars Do America. They traveled around the country to evaluate collectibles on-site, meeting devoted fans and examining rare items without waiting for sellers to come into the Las Vegas store. One standout filming location? Detroit, where they encountered everything from rock and roll memorabilia to vintage automotive signs. This traveling format let them connect with folks who might never have made the trek to Vegas. For Chumley, it was also an opportunity to re-establish himself as a vital part of the Pawn Stars brand, someone who was more than just a comedic sidekick. With every city they visited, he showed that his knowledge, quick wit, and genuine curiosity still made for great TV. Meanwhile, he also kept exploring other passions. He revealed that he had a soft spot for collectible card games, particularly Pokemon. His Instagram feed, though at times quiet, occasionally lit up with pictures of rare cards, convention appearances, and celebrity encounters. Fans who loved his carefree charm on Pawn Stars discovered a new side. A true nerd at heart, geeking out over prized collectibles most people only dreamed of owning.
The home and swabs from his mouth, also pictures of him from inside his house. And just yesterday, he hired an attorney for the drugs and guns charges.
Chumley's newfound confidence shone bright when he strolled into San Diego Comic-Con. Dressed in a graffiti-inspired bathrobe and sipping coffee from a cat-themed mug, he practically radiated playful energy. Gone was the uneasy tension that had weighed on him during his legal ordeal. He moved through the convention hall like someone truly comfortable in his own skin. He even posed for snapshots with major figures in the collectibles and comic book world: Todd McFarlane, Mitsuhiro Arita, and Stan Sakai. These icons shaped entire generations of fandom, and Chumley stood among them not as a star in trouble, but as a legitimate collector and enthusiast. His social media posts from that event showcased how far he'd come. The comedic pawn shop fixture had evolved into a cultural ambassador in the worlds of art, comics, and pop culture memorabilia. Yes, the shop and show that made him famous were still crucial to his identity, but there was a fresh sense of freedom in how he carried himself. He no longer hid behind the comedic sidekick label. Instead, he pursued what genuinely excited him, connecting with fans in a personal way and celebrating the same pop culture passions he'd grown up loving.
Chumley was in court for less than 5 minutes, and he barely said anything inside. We found out about a plea deal. He said he plans to plead guilty to a felony.
Reflecting on Chumley's journey feels like flipping through the pages of a wild adventure story. 1 minute, he's an ordinary pawn shop employee in Las Vegas, clowning around for the camera. Next, he's being hounded by outrageous rumors about a life sentence, wrestling with legal woes, and risking his reputation in front of the entire world. And yet, despite these pitfalls, he managed to turn his life around, building successful businesses, achieving jaw-dropping weight loss, and even immersing himself in the global fandom that is Comic-Con. Every step of the way, Chumley's story reminds us that it's possible to rise from your lowest point, push through harsh scrutiny, and carve out a better future. It takes resilience, a willingness to accept responsibility, and the courage to embrace the next chapter rather than remain stuck in the past. No, he didn't vanish behind bars forever. Instead, he came roaring back into the spotlight, but this time on his own terms, leading fans into a playful world of collectibles, candy shops, and cameo appearances. Whether you find his personality hilarious, inspiring, or both, one thing is certain: Chumley isn't just a side character in somebody else's show. He's writing his own script day by day. And if there's one lesson to take from his story, it's that setbacks don't have to be the final word. Even when the world believes the worst about you, you can still prove there's another side. In the end, what began as a rumor of a grim fate evolved into a testament of personal growth, showing just how much a person can change when they're fueled by passion, guided by lessons learned, and determined to shape their destiny for the better.